Hello, everyone. Welcome to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is also the name of a memoir I wrote about my journey to love and compassion. In it, I share my failures and successes in the hope that my journey will inspire yours. You can buy a signed copy on my website at lindamarcanico.com on Buy the Book page. Also at retail and bookstores. I also have a free gift for you. I call it the cheat sheet for high vibration living. 7 exercises designed for you to keep your energy high and your sensibility in the present moment. One of the exercises is a breathing exercise. I call it 4-4-8. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. It oxygenates your cells, it reduces your blood pressure, your pulse, and importantly, brings the parasympathetic nervous system to quiet the sympathetic nervous system. You can download a copy on my website at lindamarcanico.com. I have 2 disclaimers. One, that this broadcast does not establish a professional relationship. And 2, that the opinions expressed on this broadcast do not necessarily represent Talk Radio New York City. Today, my guest is Jeremy McDonald. Jeremy McDonald is a dynamic learning and development professional mindset coach and transformational speaker with over 25 years of experience. Holding a master's degree in adult education, Jeremy has led impactful initiatives for top organizations like MetLife, HSBC, and New York Life. He bridges the corporate and spiritual worlds as a new thought speaker, intuitive soul guide, and Reiki master, empowering individuals to overcome blocks and unlock their full potential. A 3-time best-selling author and host of Mystic Dialogue on Ethereal TV, Jeremy shares thought-provoking insights that inspire personal and professional growth. He is also the co-founder of the Lamplight Group and Spirit Heart Cruise, and a producer of the Beyond the Veil and Inner Temple symposiums. Known for his empathic approach, creative energy, and transformative healing work, Jeremy is a sought-after speaker and mentor who leaves a lasting impact everywhere he goes. Jeremy, welcome to the A Train to Sedona.
Well, thank you so much. That's a great introduction. Thank you, Linda. Thanks for having me.
I think we're going to have a very inspiring conversation.
I think so too. I'm looking forward to it.
My first question is, when you look at your past, your youth, what are the influences that bring you to where you are today?
Oh, my mother. My mother is one of my biggest influences. Her kindness and compassion and how she saw the world. I was kind of the emotional hothead when I was younger. And my mother's patience with me and kindness, and she was a registered nurse and then also a healer herself. She was my biggest motivator in life, and her encouragement. That was my biggest things I always remember. I always go back to my mother's teachings. And it's funny because I didn't really listen to her when I was a teenager up until I always said she got smart around 27 or 28 and she got dumb around 13. And she didn't find that quite as funny as I did, but but she also had a great sense of humor. So yeah, my mother was one of my biggest influences. And and then I was a big I loved to read when I was younger. My mother encouraged that in me, and so I was always lost in stories of history and mythology and psychology. When she was in nursing school, I confiscated her psychology book, her textbook, and read it. And she goes, "How many 14-year-olds read a psychology textbook?" Well, I did, because I like the idea and history and the way I love the way the human dynamic and the way humans work, and so. And that led me into the career I have on both the spiritual and corporate side. So I think that I fell into the correct careers, by design, of course, because you know, everything happens for a reason.
And I understand that mom was a shaman.
Yeah, my mother, in her 40s, she came to me and she says, Jer, I love you. And she said, and she'd already been pursuing, all the Reiki and all that kind of stuff. And she said, and I've been a son, I've been a mother, I've been a daughter, and I've been a friend, and I've been a nurse, and I've been everything, but I haven't pursued the things that I've always wanted to do. And she goes, so I'm going to go on a path and I'm going to start apprenticing as a shaman. And she had found a teacher here in Florida, and she started taking classes and apprenticing with them. And so very fortunate. She was elevated to shaman, and she was my teacher as well. And so not just as a mother, but also as my energy healer, or in my I guess my I apprenticed with her. And then interestingly enough, she transitioned in 2012. I had a shared death experience with her, and I didn't even know what that was. All I knew is that my body raised, my soul or energy or spirit raised out of my body. And from there, after that, I could hear her talking to me. And so she's been a great teacher even beyond the flesh. So,
How beautiful, Jeremy.
yeah,
It's quite
thank you.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So my second question is, what is the role of spirituality in your life?
I've had many different definitions on that until over the past 5, 6 years, I realized that spirituality is about finding peace and how you show up in your life. And so I really started, spirituality just meant many different things. And I think that's part of maturing just as a person. In the beginnings, when I first started doing it, I was just curious. I thought it was just a cool thing. I thought, how are these people having all these changes in their lives? And the mysticism, of course, I told you excited me. So, but then I realized as I got older that the more and more peace I found, the better my life got. And so to me, spirituality is about how you show up. And so because everybody's always trying to avoid the hard parts of their life. And I have clients all the time tell me I avoid drama like the plague. I'm like, that's impossible. That's impossible to avoid drama. However, you can show up to drama with peace in your heart and peace in your mind. And then that really changes the dynamics of how you react to it. So, I had a friend of mine over in our last cruise. He said to me, he said, I thought spirituality was supposed to be all uplifting and positive. I'm like, no, if spirituality was that, then everybody would do it. So, but it's about how you show up. So, and in that particular case, he had to end his cruise early because his partner had something that we had to fly them back to Florida in the middle of our cruise. And so he was naturally a little upset, but the transformation that happened as a result of that in his life, the trust that it took to fly home and go to the hospital in Tampa. I mean, the reality is that these things happen to us all the time. There's things that, somebody could say something bad to us, or mean to us. How are you going to respond to it? So spirituality to me is, there's a lot of crazy things going on in the world, and how are you going to approach it? Are you going to approach it with anger? And there is a certain type of anger that motivates you, but I think it comes with a sense of peace in your life. And then when you have peace, you have clarity. So to me, that's spirituality. So
And in hearing you talk, I'm thinking showing up with a peaceful heart and love in your heart allows the energy that we have to be very beautiful and positive, and
yeah,
that attracts the similar energy. So
absolutely.
how we show
Well,
up is what we get back in return.
and then likes attract likes. So what are you going to bring into your life? People that have peace in their heart, and
Mhm.
the people that don't, they may be in the perimeters. And so, and I mean, those are the one things where people come into my life and they're not necessarily peaceful. But what I do is I still treat them with compassion.
Mhm.
And because love and compassion brings peace to people's hearts. And so it not only helps you build your peace and make it stronger, but it also helps you touch other people's lives. So, and that's where people got a mistaken impression about how these things work. And so, yeah, because you'll say to somebody, find peace in your heart. And they say, but I have to get out there and I have to fight. I'm saying, well, what if you went out there and you spoke your truth in peace with strength? Wouldn't that be the same thing? Just the only difference is you didn't come in with fear in your heart. You came in with peace in your heart. And so, it's interesting. I had an experience. I had a teacher tell me, I was probably like 23 years old. And she says, Jaron, when things get tough, what I want you to do is I want you to start saying in your mind and your heart and breathing, peace on my mind, peace on my body, peace on my soul. And she says, keep saying that over and over again until you really believe it. So I'd kind of forgotten about that. And probably about a year ago, I was sitting on the Clearwater beach just meditating, and I remember her voice. She was Polish, so she had that thick Polish accent, and I hear her saying in spirit, "Don't forget, peace of my mind, peace of my body, peace of my soul." And so I sat there and I sat with the wind and everything and the waves from the beach and everything, and I remembered that. And there was an empowerment that came over my mind, body, and soul in that moment, because peace opens you up to your own divinity. And so there's a lot. That's a rabbit hole we could go down, but so
I have many questions to ask you because you talk about soul alignment. So I wanted to ask you, how can someone begin to build a relationship with their inner voice if they've spent most of their life ignoring or doubting it?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because when I really think about this, our lives have been geared towards looking outward, looking outward for acceptance, looking outward for people to give us love, looking outward for the ideas of success. So we're constantly looking outward and paying attention to other people's voices about what success and what love and what security and what empowerment and self-esteem is all about. And the reality is if you bring it in and you start looking within yourself and really paying attention, so that takes some work, because you've now had all these different voices. I remember my dream was to be I played seven different instruments when I was in high school and junior high and all the way going into college. And my dream was to be the maestro of the New York Philharmonic. Seiji Ozawa was one of my big heroes when I was younger. Well, anyways, long story short is I had my grandmother's voice saying, well, that's going to be really difficult. So I lived with that voice for a very, very long time. Now, very well intended, not meant to be mean or harmful to me at all. But the reality is then when I started saying, Grandma, I love you, but I'm the one that's living now. And now I'm 51 years old and I get to live life the way Jeremy wants to. And so then I started saying, well, show me the next. And I started paying attention. What ends up happening is when you start saying no to voices that may be well-intended but limiting, and you start listening to that voice inside, there's two voices. And the old story says, which wolf are you going to feed, the dark one or the light one? And I always say the fearful one or the one that's full of love and the authentic love. And so when I start serving that authentic love and making choices and setting boundaries in my life, then what ends up happening is then you're really starting to listen, and that inner voice starts going, finally, I wanted a relationship with you all this time. And then you start listening more. And then one day you'll hear this soft, loving voice and you'll be having a conversation with it. It took me a good 8-9 years to get there. And finally, when I heard it, I was like, wow. And it doesn't have to take that long. I'm just saying that I was a very stubborn student. So, but once you get there, it doesn't matter how long it took.
This is so true.
So,
Now, we are getting ready for a break, Jeremy, but when we come back, I would like to ask you about the common signs that your soul is trying to speak to you. How do you know it's not just your mind? So listeners, we'll see you after the break with this very impressive question.
good.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's the Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona. I'm Linda Marsanico with my guest, Jeremy E. McDonald. As I promised, I will be asking Jeremy the following question. What are some common signs that your soul is trying to speak to you? And how do you know it's not just your mind?
One of the biggest things is synchronicity. One of those things that happen, and how we can explain synchronicity. There's these subtle signs that'll happen. So one of the things I use is when I start seeing things that happen three times over and over again, it's the same thing or similar things, then I stop and I go, okay, what am I not seeing here? The other thing is your own body. So if your body is in pain or anxiety, guess what? Anxiety, I don't think anxiety is something to run from. I think anxiety is saying, hey, you're not listening, pay attention. And so I start to go and look at it and say, well, okay, what am I not seeing here? What is out of alignment? And I know that some people will argue with me about this. I've had people say, well, no, anxiety comes from my trauma when I was a kid and it's a buildup of, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is this. I'm saying if you have an overwhelming amount of anxiety and all these signs start coming up, guess what? Your soul's trying to talk to you. I just had this happen recently to me. I was so overwhelmingly busy from January, February, March, and even part of April that I had like 20 speaking engagements on top of teaching a 6-week course. So there was days where I was just coming home and I was just exhausted. So I took about 3 weeks to really do nothing. And I still was busy. I had other things going on, but the times I had to take time for myself, I was really just taking that time and resting. Well, one of the signs was my body was not feeling good. So it was also a sign from my soul to say, it's okay to continue doing your work, but don't overwhelm yourself. You can say no sometimes. And then also what happened is I'm writing a new book right now. And so recently I had this almost like angsty feeling going on inside of me. And so I thought, well, what does that mean? And I thought, am I getting depressed? Like, what is going on? So, and I asked these questions of myself. Well, really what it was is I needed to sit down and start writing. My soul was saying, sit down and write. So I was getting all these big, beautiful ideas for the book. And I'd been saying I was blocked for like 6 months that I couldn't write. So over the past week, what have I been doing? Sitting down and writing. And I've been getting chapters of the book done. So it's that angsty feeling was a sign for me that there was something out of alignment between the soul, body, mind, and soul. And the soul was saying, hey, I got a bunch of downloads to give you. It's time to pay attention. But also I use a bunch of different things. I study a lot of things like Ted Andrews' Animal Speak. I don't know if you've heard of that book.
I do. I have it on my shelf.
Yeah, I do too. I got back here. And I also use a book called The Metaphysical Anatomy by Yvette Rose. And the reason why I use that is because last year I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic. And so one of the things I learned from that book is not to say I am a diabetic, I have a diagnosis of a diabetic. So people, I'll say that on stage and people will go, oh, I'm like, no, it's a good thing. There's a reason. Because diabetes energetically, metaphysically, I'm not talking about the medical side, I'm not a doctor, but what I will say is this, is that metaphysically what it's saying is there's anger going on inside of you. And Louise Hay would have said life is not sweet enough. And that's true to a point, but when you get deeper into it, there's an anger going on inside of you. Well, it comes back to my childhood. I was born to a 15-year-old father and a 16-year-old mother in 1974. So you can just imagine the energy of what was going on inside of my mother being 16 and then going and being raised and not, being on the poorer side of the family and, those kind of things, and not being able to have the life that the 7-year-old boy thought I should have, or the 10-year-old boy I would have. I was also diagnosed with a learning disability called dyslexia. And I was 6 foot tall when I was 12 years old. So the amount of being picked on as a kid was pretty substantial. Well, what does that do? The sign for me in that diabetes is to go and say, I need to let go of all of this. There's time, because letting go isn't about saying it's okay for those people that picked on me, or it's okay for the feelings I had when I was a kid. What it's saying is it's now time for me to find peace in this and start to find peace and allowing those souls to be let go. All those kids that picked on me as a kid, they're adults now. They don't even remember me. Or if they do, they're not thinking the same things. We were kids. And so those are the things that we have to start looking at. And so I use diagnoses or things that are going on with my health, or I use angel numbers, to start. If you start seeing the same number over again, like 33 or 22 or 111, look it up. Look up angel number. What does angel number 111 mean? Or if you see an animal and it just, you see this cat walk across your path, look up a cat. I just, my cousin called me the other day. She lives in the Ocala National Forest, and she had a bear in her shed. So I said, hey, let's look up what the bear means. And, it's about, security and home, because bears protect their cubs. And, so metaphysically, what it said to her, said, where do you not feel safe? Where do you not feel like your home is safe? And so those are the type of things we have to ask ourselves. And it really came back to childhood, where she's never felt safe in her life. And now she's in her 60s. And so there's a subconscious that happens. So you use these signs to really pay attention and go deeper within yourself to really start saying, okay, that's still affecting me on an energetic level. Because we only look at the surface. We only look at the conscious. We don't necessarily look at what's going on subconsciously in our psyche. And that's stored in our energy field. And so that's where we really kind of get messed up. And so if you use these signs, you can start to really pay attention. Some people would call that intuition. I just say it's the universe talking to me.
It reminds me that we're never really alone on this path. We have nature helping, the universe directing. And when we're open, we get many prompts. There was one woman who wrote, she was walking down the street, a car swerved, a book fell out. She picked it up and it changed her life forever.
Yeah.
We're accompanied, and it's not such a lonely path. It's actually an adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those things happen to countless people. I mean, think about the people that have had near-death experiences and how it's changed their lives. And or it doesn't even have to be that profound. Like I say, the ordinary daily things can be just as profound as the metaphysical or spiritual things. So look at everything. Look at everything that's going on in your life, the interactions that you're having. Did you accidentally snap at somebody you loved or a friend? Well, why did you do that? What did it trigger inside of you? And so, but what we do is we look at it and we, of course, apologize, but then look at it and say, well, what was that all about? Self-awareness is the key, I think, to really healing ourselves. Well, we've been, like I said before, we've been taught to look outwards and create this persona that we're all, great. As a spiritual teacher, when I first started, I had one teacher say, don't talk about all your vulnerabilities because people will use that against you. And I'm like, I think we should be vulnerable on stage as speakers and teachers, because that makes us real. And it tells the people that are sitting in the audience that hey, this person went in the same path that I'm facing right now. And they're being vulnerable. And what they're telling me is that, hey, I have hope that I can heal, that I can work my way through this and find something in my life to find peace or find abundance or find love or whatever it is that I feel like I'm lacking. A lot of people have a worthiness issue going on in this world. So that's definitely something that I had in my own life, a worthiness issue. And I finally had to just say, you're worthy of everything. So
we need to remind ourselves of that. And Jeremy, I think that when we're on stage, when we're talking, when we're writing, our vulnerability inspires others. Oh, she went through that. Oh, and she got through it. And how did she do that? Wow, that's a recipe for me that I can use.
Yeah.
It's quite inspirational.
Yeah, it definitely is. Definitely is.
Now, I know we're getting ready for another break, and we'll have a question when we come back, but I'm just looking at your backdrop, how beautiful it is. We were talking about that before. There are two dolphins, yin and yang. Could you just tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I'm a Pisces, so I was really just drawn into it, and I love dolphins, and I have a whole story about dolphins, but that'll take another 15 minutes. So, but the idea is that I was a speaker at this event in Sarasota, and I walked up to the vendor and I said, really like that. How much is it? And she goes, well, it's really not for sale. And she goes, but I was like, all right, well, okay, thank you. It's beautiful. So at the end of the weekend, she gave it to me. And so it's gonna be the background for my show on Ethereal TV. And so there's parts of it, you see the balance there in the background, but it actually has this beautiful stuff, and I got some Archangel Michael stuff that I'm going to hang on it. So I'm waiting for those to come in the mail. But yeah, I love it. It's really about the yin and yang, the balance within all of us. So,
and I see something behind the dolphin that's on the low side, a circle. Is that the moon?
yes, yeah. Yeah, it's the moon and the sun. There's the sun and the orange, and then there's the moon and the upper part of it.
So what I'm looking at is the sun, the one that's right on your right side next to your eye. Next to the dolphin's eye is the sun.
Yep.
So you have yin yang, male, female, you have a lot going on. It's quite beautiful.
It really just brings joy to me, and the story behind it is just, I think, gorgeous. And so the funny part is I have the balance. I couldn't figure out how to hang it up. I'm not super good with that kind of stuff. So I had my friend Michelle come over and said, I need you to help me how I get this balance. And she just laughs. She just laughed. She goes, that's why I'm in your life, dear. And I just bought her dinner. And so it was fun.
It's a lovely exchange.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I see also some circles. Outside the main circle there's a black background with little circles and half circles. What do they represent, Jeremy?
I always think of those as like the bubbles in water, because the dolphins are floating, and they could be the cosmic bubbles. When you really look deep, when you find that balance within, and that's a whole other story. Like in the Bible, where it says their path gets narrow in Matthew 7, I always see that as the balance, like you're dancing with God. And so, if you let God lead, God will swing you, and you'll never fall too far on either side, and you'll always be in balance. So when God swings you one way, you'll gather the lessons and opportunities from that side, and you get this cosmic awareness. So
nice.
Then those are the different thought bubbles, or in the cosmos, I guess, or fractals, whatever you want to refer to it as. So
all of it is lovely. Thank you for that. So we are going to take a break now. When we come back, listeners, I'm going to be asking Jeremy, can you share a time when listening to your soul completely changed the course of your life, and how you knew it was the right choice? Stay tuned, listeners. Let's take it away for a break.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, a.k.a. the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Navtej Dessange, inviting you to Stepping Up Success with a Splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers!
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona. I'm here with my guest, Jeremy McDonald, and I'm Linda Marsanico. So, Jeremy, I posed a question and then I went off to do something. I'm being quite vulnerable here. Let's see. Now, I think this is it. Can you share a time? Now, I asked you about how it completely changed the course of your life. Did I ask you that question?
I think you were gonna, can you share a time when listening to your soul completely changed your life?
Okay, so listeners, let me restate it. Can you share a time, Jeremy, when listening to your soul completely changed the course of your life and how you knew it was the right choice?
Yeah, so it was in 2006, and I was the chief operating officer of a mortgage company in Baltimore, Maryland. And was sitting in there and looking in the mirror. I was 32 years old, and I just thought I had arrived in life, if that makes any sense.
It does.
But I was miserable. So how can you arrive in life if you're miserable? But I had the cute office, and I was close to the Inner Harbor in Baltimore, which is a beautiful area. I had the relationship that I thought I wanted, but it was all surface. You know, it was the relationship with the person I thought was, I'm going to choose the words hot, sexy. And, but we didn't mesh well together. And it was the title I thought that I wanted, the office I thought I wanted, and the cute little place to live and all that other kind of stuff. And I would buy everybody drinks at the bar. And, you know, I just thought I'd arrived in life. But the reality is I was feeding, those were all distractions from what was going on inside of me. And so I remember looking in the mirror one day and thinking, I'm miserable. And so my soul said, are you ready to hear and listen? And I thought to myself, yeah. And I had literally just a year beforehand, I'd been studying metaphysics at that point in time for probably, I guess, 10 years. And in the last couple of years before that, I had watched the movie What the Bleep Do We Know and The Secret and all that other kind of stuff. But I really hadn't really resonated. I mean, it was life-changing in a sense, but I really hadn't really studied it. You know, the law of attraction and natural law and universal law and quantum physics. And so I started diving into that, and the spirit, my soul kept on dropping things in my lap. I'd be just sitting, I don't know if you ever had those moments when you start going on this Google searching campaign, and you find books and you find videos and you find things that you're going to relate to and watch to. And when I tell you that in 2006, everything fell apart after I said that in that mirror, and basically my soul said, get ready. So within 3 months, I was I'd moved to Pennsylvania for a short amount of time to live with my family. I lost my job, got another job, got fired from that job, ended up moving back to Florida to live with my mother. Enters the time when I start working with her and learning from her about healing work and mainly healing myself. And so a new teacher came into my life as on top of my mother. And so it was literally, they had to kind of, the energy had to kind of tear away the old in order for me to bring in the new. And what I've learned is nothing's really torn away. You're transmuting it. You're transmuting into a new form, because energy never really goes anywhere. It just you transform how you see the world. And then on top of that, about 2 years after that, I had an experience with what I would call Jesus that stood behind me. Now, I am not necessarily a Bible thumping Christian, but I would consider myself a Gnostic Christian. And I always say I follow the religion of love. And so I started studying everything from Buddhism and everything else. And when Jesus came in, I said, "What are you doing here? I don't even like you." Yeah. And so his response was, "Well, when you learn to love yourself, you'll learn to love me. And I'm here to help you learn to love yourself." And I was like, whoa. So then I would hear this voice. And really, when I think about it, because we're all one, that's the higher consciousness coming through and manifesting as Jesus for me, because it was something that I hated. So it's an aspect of ourself. And in the Mayans, they say En Lakesh, and En Lakesh is I am another you. And so when you start looking at that and saying, okay, well, I'm hating an aspect of consciousness, it means I'm actually hating myself.
Yes.
Not liking myself. And so really what it comes down to is that I really started looking at, well, why do I not like myself? Well, I wrote a book in 2012 called Peace Be Still. And it was really about the fact that I hadn't found peace in my life. Now, Linda, when I tell you, and then people that read the book, they'll find out in the very first chapter that I was a functional drug addict, meaning I would go to work, I would do all the I'd pay my bills and do everything I was supposed to, but I was still doing methamphetamines and ecstasy and drinking a lot, and and so when I looked in that mirror and said, I'm so miserable, the reality is I was doing everything possible to avoid what was going on inside of me. And what was going on inside of me is I really didn't like myself. I really didn't think I was valuable. And the reality is that your inner world is what's active in your life. We think that it's the outer world and how people are responding to us and how we're interacting. But your inner world is how you interact with the world. So if you think that you're not good enough, that you're not loving enough, or that you're not attractive enough, or you're not smart enough. I mean, I have clients now that have 6 master's degrees and a doctorate, and they still don't think they're smart. And I'm like, how many degrees does it take until you feel you're smart? But what it comes down to is that they don't feel worthy, just like I didn't feel worthy. And like a lot of us didn't feel worthy because we paid more attention to what's going on outside. So my soul guided me into these experiences, including, fast forward 6 years later, my mother transitioning, and in reality that I thought that I needed her, but that was her soul's way of kicking me out of the nest at 37 and saying, you got this. I'm still going to be here with you. The truth is that the soul guided me to find my own inner self-empowerment and self-expression, my self-esteem, whatever you want to refer to it. And so to me, that was the best decision I ever made. I could have stayed there. I could have continued to go and pursue things that weren't fulfilling to me and didn't bring peace and abundance and love and joy to me. But the reality is, if you have peace, love, joy, and a type of abundance that supplies all your needs, then you're successful. And we look at all the wrong things. We've been trained to look at our accomplishments as opposed to what's going on in here.
Yes.
And so my soul guided me to have a relationship with myself.
The most important relationship we have is with Creator within, which is one, which is with us.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, when I get information different ways, but one is for it telepathically to come across here. It's like a quiet ticker tape.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other ways, but how do you get information, Jeremy? I think it can be informative to our listeners to discuss this.
That's a good question. I feel like the world and the universe is always talking to me. So I'm what is considered claircognizant and clairsentient. Mm-hmm. And so I get a knowing and a feeling. Mm-hmm. I do get audible stuff, but I'll tell you what I really get is I watch the world unfold. And it's the best way I can describe it. I remember I was probably about 7 years ago, I was at a happy hour with a group of people. And one of the guys that was there, he's just this really tough guy, bad boy. type, and he was, but he was a big softie, and so you'd have this tough exterior and a big softie. Well, we'd had at that point a few drinks, and he was definitely intoxicated. But there was something that when he was talking to me, it was almost like our hearts and souls came together at that moment. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it just was in that moment. And he was saying something to me that was very deep, but it was basically, it's time for you to speak up. And what that meant is, opening up your throat chakra. That's not what he said, but to me, that was the universe speaking through him.
Yes, indeed.
And it resonated with my soul. So the reality is that this world is talking to you all the time. So if you get that moment where you can really, it's almost like the whole world stops and you're really in this moment where you're interacting with whatever it is. I had another experience like 3 months ago, and I was walking downstairs, and I went outside and I saw a bluebird that had literally fallen on the ground, and it was flopping around on its back, and it freaked me out. So I was just like, I put my hands over it because I didn't know what else to do to give it energy. And so after about 10 minutes, it flipped over on its side, but it was breathing. It was really heavy breathing and laboring for breath. And so I was, what is that all about? And so I just kept on giving it energy, and I had to leave for like 30 minutes and come back. And I said to the bluebird, I will be back to come and check on you. So I went back upstairs, came back down 30 minutes later, and I went to go try to put my hands above it again to give him more energy. But this time it wasn't laboring for breath. It was just sitting there. And it jumped up and flew off. And so I was, and I remember there was another bluebird that was squeaking and screaming, like you could just tell it was scared, because you find out when you look up Ted Andrews, a bluebird is about family and love, but it's also about, don't forget about joy. What's the point in pursuing all these goals if you forget about joy and happiness and connection with the people that you love and family? Well, bluebirds are all about family. So when I looked that up and I realized I'm working towards all these goals because I feel like it's a mission. But the reality is that divine timing, divine order, divine plan, make it easy. And here's the other cool part about that. A few weeks later, I was teaching a class, and there was a gentleman there. And like I mentioned before, I used to play several different instruments. Well, all my instruments were stolen from me right about that time in 2006. My entire storage locker was raided and a bunch of things were stolen out of it. One of them was a Gibson Les Paul guitar. Well, this man, I said, one day, if I was meant to come back into my life, it'll come back. Well, this man gave me an Epiphone Les Paul almost 20 years later. Well, I haven't played in 30 some odd years. But the reality is music has always brought joy to my heart. And so what have I been doing? I've been practicing and getting back into playing guitar, because don't forget about joy. Because what if you arrive at your goal and you get there and you forgot about joy? What was the point?
Absolutely. Kuan Yin, through the woman who channels her, Lee Lysak, always says, create your energy through dancing and playing. Joy, it creates the most wonderful energy. And we do want to be creating energy because the earth really needs the solid energy. Now, before we take a break, I'm very interested to know what the instruments are that you play. 6 instruments, Jeremy? You're tremendously gifted.
I played the bass trombone, I played the trumpet, I played the guitar, the piano, the saxophone, and I played the clarinet. So I just, I'm one of those types of people that when I want to learn, I want to learn. And so what music did for me, I've been on 3 tours of the United States, 2 as a musician in drum and bugle corps. So I played the contrabass and the euphonium, and I toured all over the country. And then I also did 1 tour as an author. So somebody asked me, how did you do all that in your life? I said, well, I never had kids. So I had plenty of time.
Did you take lessons in these instruments?
I took lessons in trombone. The other ones, I got books and I started teaching myself. That's one of those things where I was the trombone and the guitar were more of my instruments. The trumpet was, I could play okay. I wouldn't say I was an expert at it, but I could play it okay. I just kept on picking up instruments and trying to play them. And I thought it was fun. And so, but I'll tell you what it did for me. Music gave me a self-confidence that I would have never had if I hadn't actually explored my musical side. And so performing in front of 20,000 people at Foxborough Stadium really helps your self-esteem, because you either do it or you don't.
Well, you certainly have a gift for it. And it reminds me that Eric Clapton, the great musician, taught himself the guitar. You just have that gift and you go with it. It's a wonderful thing. Now, I'm advised that we're ready for a break. When we come back, Jeremy, we're going to talk about why do so many people feel stuck when it comes to making decisions, and how does soul guidance help dissolve that fear?
Okay.
Take it away.
All right, awesome. We'll see you back at the break.
Yes.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marsanico with my guest, Jeremy McDonald. So, Jeremy, why do so many people feel stuck when it comes to making decisions? And how does soul guidance help dissolve that fear?
Yeah, so one of the things that people do, like I mentioned earlier, is we've had traumas in our life where, let's say that you made a decision, it didn't work out. Or somebody's told you that was a dumb idea, or, we think it's going to be too hard and we don't want to take that step, and we get caught up. And then, I get clients all the time that sit in front of me and they say, well, I'm just afraid of making the wrong decision. And I always tell them, I said, well, that's going to happen. The reality is you're going to make wrong decisions. And if you think you're not, then you're misguiding yourself. However, when you make mistakes, don't look at them as a failure. Look at them as the opportunity to help yourself grow into who you are. When I went on my book tour in 2012, I went 22 states. I sold a little over 2,000 books. And so by all rights, a first-time author, that was pretty successful. A lot of first-time authors, they publish their books and then they buy about 50 of them, they sell them to their family and friends, and the rest of them sits in the garage or in storage for many years. And that's not to put them down, but that's just kind of what happens. And so, but when I came back and I had to go back to work, there was a part of me that was like, oh man, I have to go back to work. But the truth is that success came from just taking the leap of faith and growing from it. I knew nothing about getting a book out there. And I just happened to run into my publicist by accident, and have the same publicist that Neil Donald Walsh has, and Richard Bach and several others. And she's taught me more about this business than I could have learned without her. And so what ends up happening, I took the step, made the mistakes, and then somebody was already in my life and helped me through all that and taught me every step of the way. So was that a failure or was it a success? And I want to say it's a success, because then I started looking at more and started looking at things that I could do to improve, and how I could build my social media presence, and how I could do these things. And so, and then my other books that have come out, which I've been in collaboration books, those have been successful. And so when you start looking at things instead of saying, well, that was a failure, don't do it anymore. Say, well, okay, how do I refine that and grow that? And your dreams will morph into new things. They will literally grow. What I thought was going to be what I was going to do back in 2006 is drastically different 19 years later. And so allow yourself to shift through all that. So what ends up happening is the soul's trying to say, hey, I call it like lily pads, like a frog jumps from one lily pad to the next, and you go from that lily pad to the next, and you start to grow with that, and you start saying, wow, that's really cool. That just happened. And then I'm writing a book right now, another book with a group of friends of mine. And I won't say the word because I don't want to cuss on your radio station, but you can't make that S up. And it's basically because the reason being is because I know all of you have had things happen in your life and you're like, did that just happen? And how did that happen? Well, spirit. So to go back to I believe your original question that was about, when to follow your soul and why are we stuck? Well, we're stuck because we're stuck in this idea. It's called cross-purposing, where you have two minds on everything. Well, I really want to do this. My heart and soul says this, but my mind and all my programs say to go this way. That's what's called cross-purposing. And it's interesting in the Bible, it says you can't serve two masters. So you're trying to serve these two ideas, but they don't work. And because it's like having one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas, the car's not going anywhere. And so, but if you just allow and do the dance, so to speak, like I was talking about earlier, and allowing the universe to guide you and swing you and grow, help you grow and understand things on a greater level, you're going to have so much success that it's almost over. It'll be, like I said, at the beginning of this year, it was a little overwhelming. But the universe never gives you anything that you can't handle. And even through that success, that is a new lesson, because the opportunities and the lessons, as Charles Fillmore said, spirituality is a lifelong process. You never just arrive. The soul is constantly growing. The universe is constantly expanding. So why wouldn't you constantly expand? And so that's what's exciting. So instead of getting stuck, get excited and start saying, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to have things that happen. And each one of those are exciting. So now what I do is when I make what I would consider to be a mistake, which is really an opportunity, I'm like, ooh, I'm excited. It's something to learn. It's something I get to discover about myself. And what amazing things is that? I was traveling for a year and a half and kind of renting out a room from a friend here in Florida, and had what I would consider to be my dream apartment. And I had to let go of it and move into that room. But I was traveling and went out to Colorado, California, all these other different things, and lots of speaking engagements and things that were happening. And so that was all going. And then at the beginning of this year, I was like, it's time for me to get a place to live. I really want my bed back. And so I was sitting there holding on to this one complex apartment that I knew I should apply for. But everybody was saying it was like a year waiting list. And so even when I came in, there's like, it's a year waiting list. And so I finally just put the money down, the $50 for the application. And Linda, they called me in 1 week and said, we have an apartment available. And so that's one of those things where you have to say, you can't make this up. That was the universe said, it's time for you to have a place. Well, what happened in that year and a half? I was humbled. I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I was taken care of. Living out of your car, traveling and going to different places and having your car with just clothes in it and not necessarily organized is definitely a lesson in where your mind and energy is at. So, yeah.
How courageous of you to embark on that, and how beautiful for universe to give you what you needed in a week to know. Now we have just a few minutes, and I wanted to ask you, just if we could spend 2 minutes, how to help our listeners know what daily practices like stillness, meditation, or journaling help connect us with soul wisdom.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where your soul is always talking to you. So start journaling, even if it's just a few minutes a day, to write it down. Meditate, set a time for yourself. I have I have 5 to 10 minutes every morning when I wake up and I just lay there and I just breathe. And before I even get my coffee or get up and do anything, I just spend 5 to 10 minutes waking myself up and just breathing. What it's doing is it's relaxing my energy and my body. And I always say, then I say to the universe, I say, surprise me. And I give it with this energy and feeling of like when you were a kid and you were getting ready to walk out and see the Christmas tree in the morning on Christmas morning, that excitement, so that you can say to God, surprise me, meaning that every nugget he's going to give you, he or she, whatever you pray to, is going to give you that day, is going to be a gift like Christmas morning. And then I go throughout the day and I have a conversation. It's like a walking meditation all day long and saying, hey, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. And then at the end of the night, I meditate for at least an hour to 2 hours every night. It's my reward to myself. I also take a walk, 2 or 3 times a week in nature so that it connects me, and I'll touch the trees and I'll do everything. And so it really gets me and my mind quiet. And so what it does is it gives you a better relationship with yourself. But we're constantly out doing. I got to get the laundry done. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. You can take 5 minutes for yourself. And people will say, well, it's impossible. And I will say to the ego, because the ego wants to be constantly active, I say, you can give me 5 minutes of quiet. And so the inner ego is like, okay, I'll give you 5 minutes.
That's why you're the boss.
Yeah. And so, well, it's my body. That's the way I look at it. And so I look at it, and I've been just as busy as everybody else, but you have to take that time for yourself. Otherwise, you're not being guided by the soul. Then you're caught up in the world as opposed to being in flow with it. And so and it also helps you pull up all the things that have been blocking you. So, yeah.
So, Jeremy, as we come to the close of our conversation, how can people find you?
So my website is very easy. It's jeremymcdonald.net. And it's JEREMYMCDONALD.net. And on there is the links to all my social media. There is, you can get onto my mailing list on there. I have workshops on there. I have my Inner Temple Symposium recordings, one with Marie Diamond from The Secret. I've got one with Raymond Moody on there as one of our keynotes. There's lots of cool different products and things that you can get my book there. But more importantly, you just want to connect, just get on my social media. And we'll connect and interact and engage with each other. So.
Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for being my guest. I'm sure that our listeners will be very enlightened to hear all that you had to say today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Next week, listeners, my guest will be Candace McKim, a very spiritual woman who talks about many spiritual things, including intuition being a choice. So we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.